Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we are back for another edition of the Astro Weather. And I don't have I have a peachy sighting. Jasper's over there in his crown, but we're all here together and everything is in place. What's going on? What's happening? I hope you're all having a spectacular start to your day, or wherever you are, that it has been at least positive. Let me just check on the actual weather here, because we're supposed to get some major weather in these parts. Let me just see here. So today it is going to be 90 degrees. Holy smokes. 90 degrees here in Kerrville. We got 90, 89 tomorrow, 83 on Friday, 69. It cools off a bit on Saturday and Sunday. And we have some rain coming on Saturday. But, wow, 90 degrees. And we're in April. Holy smokes. A little echoey. I'm not quite sure. I guess I could change the signal here. Hold on. The signal. Hold on. Okay, we just try that. How does that sound? I changed the output a little bit here. Maybe I can dial back on the gain. Let's try that. Does that work for y'all? Does that work for y'all? Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Same. I got. I don't know. Let's try a different setting. You can try front and back. How's that? Front and back. Is that going to work? Front and back. Let me go into StreamYard. Let's see. Good here. Fuzzy. Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's on your end. Maybe it's on your end. Anyway, let's get into some of the chat. You'll just have to deal with my vocals for now. Let's see. Who do we have here? California Contrarian and DJ MC checking in. 11:59, 12:09. Barbara Boots at 1:01 a.m. Liddy Lou at 4:15. Janice Phillips. Scott Jerzik, what's going on? Scott, misbehaving too. Sue Leonard checking in from way down under. Salty Cow, my bro, what's happening? Yes, throw that right up there. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Good to see you, Salty. My Endless Road, Queen, Lisa, Jackie Delario, Julianne Ross. Hi, Julianne. Susan with the nice looking sunflowers. We love our sunflowers. Artist Seer, I have an April 14th solar return. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Life is short. Enjoy every moment. Let's throw that up there. It's true. 100%. Hammer time. My man Steve, Thor at the door. The mayor is in the house. Helian Hart Rosie, Christina Jerzik. My man. Zerlith Immortal. Who else we have? There she is. The lovely and talented one. Saving Austin. One tooth at a time. Janine, Laura E., Mary Grether, Zalaro Moral Z. Zalaro Moral Z. So Zerlith Immortal and Zalaro Moral Z. You should find each other. That's what I'm thinking. And wishing us a good morning from Springfield, Missouri. Well, good morning back. Meow Meow Kitty Poop, my man, TJ, Thomas Jordan. Yes, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe, notification bell, so you know when we're going live. Dave Sullivan is here. Big Dave. What's up, Dave? Carol Moore, Miss Nikki, Devin Dewar. Hi, Devin. Soul Traveler. Esperanza Vince Tarot. Harry Bowie. Hey, hey, hey. PB, Perspectivized. My man Ryan in the house today. Mark S. We got an all-star. We got an all-star chat. The superstars are here today. Let us thank. Yes, sign up over there, locals. Help support the show. Thank you, Ryan. Maya Rose. Michelle Renee is here. Hadidas 99 from Sydney. How about that? More down under. Tildy Weems from Houston. Diane Evans checking in. Hi, Diane. Kelly B. What a crew. What a crew. Cecilian Aphrodite. My gal Lynette Jardine. Mad Maxine. And yes, you can buy me a cup of coffee right there. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Let's see who else we have. Oh, it's Mr. Sunshine, Neil Smith checking in from Wisconsin. Stephanie Hunter, Beth, James Morgan, high winds, storm in southern Illinois. Phil Thompson's back with us today. Hi, Philip. Pebbles in the house, Perspectivized. I can keep going on and on and on. My guy Benito is here. Well, that means that our friend Amy is here as well. Sharon Lewis. Did you know today is Pascua, Florida Day? I did not know that. It's a special day, Pascua, Florida Day. Julie Sunshine, 333, more in the NYC. Scrubbies, Julia Payne, Lana. Holy smokes, Melissa Stanton. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Let's get into the weather without any further delay. Let's do it. Let's see. Where the hell is that damn weather? It's right here. I gotta remove the other media. Okay. Yeah. There's the weather. There it is. Look at that. First time, too. Look at that. And I'm even going to minimize me. I'm going to minimize little old me. So it's just the weather. This is the purity of today's transmission. There's no me involved. It's just you and it. All right, let's dig in, shall we? I was thinking about Mercury retrograde in Pisces, and it's a little soggy. I have to admit. I was just thinking about it from my own selfish perspective, because it is opposing my natal sun. It is. So it's been a little soggy. My thinking yesterday was a little soggy. But then, after thinking about it, maybe I was being a little too hard on myself. You know, this is the nature of Pisces. Pisces people are so hard on themselves. They're hard on themselves when other people aren't. But then, the weird part about Pisces, and I hope I don't offend any Pisces out there, but there are times when you're not hard on yourself than you should be. It's a strange sign. Because when they're hard on themselves, your heart goes out and look at these people. They're really tortured. They're really very difficult on themselves, like exceedingly so. And your heart really goes out to them. And then there are the times when they're not hard on themselves. It's like, what the fuck are you thinking? It's like, I want to splash you with cold water. We love our Pisces. They're unique to say the least, and every one of them is just slightly different than all the rest. But this is the nature of where Mercury and Venus are now. Mercury, I believe, goes direct on Monday of next week. So we're almost there. We're almost at the end of Mercury retrograde, and I believe Venus goes direct on Thursday. So by tomorrow of next week, these two inner goblins, these two inner planets, which have been slightly goblin-esque, will be moving forward and setting the the record straight. And boy, when they go direct at Aries, look out. Because whatever has been on the back burner and kind of simmering, I suppose, well, the heat gets turned up, and there's a lot of self-expression that's going to be made up for in terms of the lost time here, theoretically, with the retrograde. Look, there's some good that can come out of the retrograde. I was able to use it the other day to my advantage and get a lot of things kind of straight, finally. So don't be. I mean, we're kind of almost out of this retrograde, so I'm not here to kind of give you a rousing, sort of enthusiastic inspiration speech for Mercury retrograde. I mean, you guys know the drill, but it just feels soggy. And I guess if you're in a certain part of the world where the climate is also contributing to the soggy nature of Mercury retrograde, then you get the inner and the outer at the same time. It's looking kind of dark here. We're not supposed to get any rain, but it's looking very dark. Today, Mercury is conjuncting the true node, which is interesting. It's a very interesting conjunction. And it feels to me like there's some, how do I say this? There is truth in the air. There's something about this Mercury true node conjunction. There is truth in the air, but it's not evident because that's not the nature of Pisces. Pisces is not Sagittarius. It's not in your face. But there is something here to this true node conjunction with Mercury. It is slightly revelatory. And here's the thing. It's the answer that's been staring you in the face the whole time. And you've not been able to either look at it for whatever reason or see it. But it's been there for a very long time. And it's like, remember that commercial, the V8 commercial? It could have had a V8. That's kind of what this is like. It's like, it was right there. It was right there the whole stinking time. How many of you have had that moment and you kind of feel, I wouldn't say dumb, but you feel like you're kind of laying down on the awareness job a little bit. That's what it's like. But it's not necessarily, I wouldn't call it bad. I wouldn't put a value judgment on it. It's better to find out these things or see them, even if they're kind of late in the game, than not at all. And it's a really tight bunch here between Mercury and Saturn. Look at this. Saturn's at 24. Venus is at 26. The true node is at 27. Mercury's at 20. So we're all bunched up here. This is a pretty tight stellium. And whatever kind of awareness, whatever kind of sitting right in front of your face kind of moment you have, it's not temporary. Saturn is the cement. Saturn is the thing that bonds thoughts into form. So the other part here is, it's funny, I was just online, I was looking at this story that you guys know who Joe Dispenza is, right? Joe Dispenza claims that he's figured out a cure for cancer. It has nothing to do with anything that you put in your body. But, Joe Dispenza is that everything is conscious of that, right? And it feels kind of apropos that message or transmission is sort of making the rounds today. Because there is a there there. And when we get into Pisces, everything is so subjective. And the thing about Pisces too is that there's this very powerful duality of Pisces. You get heaven, you get hell, and you get everything in between. So today is one of those days where your thoughts that are connected to your feeling, because Pisces is a feeling sign, they're not indistinct from one another. Your thoughts connected to your feeling become reality. The density of Saturn in the physical world becomes manifest here. So these are important days here. It's not just today, it'll be tomorrow. Mercury goes all the way back to 24, so it will conjunct with Saturn. So it's kind of like working with concrete. Water, Saturn being the earth component here to some degree. I mean, even though it's in Pisces, Saturn represents earth. This is a really interesting period of time. If you are into thought experiments, if you're into this idea of consciousness manifesting in the physical, here you go. Like the next week is your laboratory. You can see it in action. Now, luckily, most of this is very positive because when we go through Pisces, we can go through all kinds of anxieties and fears. And it's very, very psychosomatic, but it's pretty positive. So I would encourage each and every one of you, if you're going to participate in this experiment, if you have sediment or dross or something that is the density, represents the density of thoughts, to purify that. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can purify it. You know, there's meditation, whether you're meditating consciously, sitting down with your eyes closed, or in your garden, or you're doing a hobby or something. You can be mindful and you can be aware during that time. So this is a really, really interesting period where your thoughts can inform matter. And we have Mars over here, which is helping out. Like Mars says, come on. And I'm a little over Mars in Cancer. I'm just going to be kind of honest about that. But at the same time, it's a really good Mars to put some of this into action. Because, how do I say this? Consciousness is not without feeling. In fact, feeling is a part of consciousness. Right? Feeling sad, feeling depressed, feeling angry, feeling frustrated. These are all parts of consciousness. To say that they're not would be dismissive of the wide spectrum of consciousness at our disposal or at our facility, right? So, but you need to work through those. And I think Mars in Cancer is good for that because I wouldn't call it necessarily a gentle push, but it's definitely a push. It's like keep working through it, keep working through it, keep working through it. You know, try to understand what's yours and not yours, because that's the other thing with Pisces, is that sometimes it's very difficult for us to understand what's ours and what belongs to somebody else or what's out there in the environment. And the environment is kind of crazy. We all know this. You know, I'll give you a little story. I was at the stretch zone last week, and this is kind of a snapshot as to where we are as a culture. We'll use the word culture. So I'm sitting there and I'm getting stretched out with my guy, and then 2 tables over, I wouldn't say he's a version of me, but he's kind of a version. I don't know this guy. It's the first time I've seen him in there. And he's talking with his stretch mechanic. And he's basically, and this is a Texan dude, right? He's a Texan guy. He's basically saying that, so his little stretch mechanic said, oh, I was really tired yesterday. And, you know, I don't know why I was. So he starts to go into what? CME. He starts talking about CME. And then he says, you know, there are a lot of people right now that don't really feel very connected to reality. And I was like, this motherfucker listened to my show. And he's basically uncoiling the script, right? Which is interesting. Because it's like, oh, here we are. We're in Texas. We're in Kerrville. high physical density. But here's a guy that is kind of running my inner dialogue. And he's two tables over. And then he says, well, the matrix is getting reset. And I'm not saying anything. So I don't really believe that we live in a simulation. I mean, I think we live in a partial simulation. You know, when the Vedic people talk about Maya, you know, I can wrap my head around it. But there's another layer of so-called reality that is here, and that this simulation has been choking off like kudzu for a long time. It's been getting worse. But this is what I'm talking about when you have a guy basically two tables over talking or reflecting on one's own inner dialogue. This is very Piscean. This is how the subjectivity of one's inner dialogue or inner thoughts or inner life becomes externalized. It's like very interesting, right? And I think this is actually a very important time. You know, we just had Neptune going to Aries. It's a very different kind of energy. You know, everything is kind of locked and loaded behind the sun and Neptune right here. And Mars is like, keep going, keep pushing, keep working through it, keep working through it, keep working through it. It is not a bull in a china shop like Mars and Taurus. It is not, you know, like the total FU like Mars and Aries. And I'm just going to, you know, go colonize a new land, right? No, it's Mars and Cancer. And so it has sort of a bit of a stop and a start and a stop and a start. But the whole idea is to keep moving forward. So whoever you are out there, keep pushing through whatever kind of internal static or malaise that you have, because we're gonna get to the bottom of this as far as we can get, and it's gonna be over the weekend, but it'll be good because once Mercury moves forward, there's a bit of a new resolve. So you have a few days to continue to work through this, and it'll be very positive. Very, very positive. So the idea of an attitude adjustment is really on the table. So don't, as I guess it was what Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush once sang, don't give up. Don't give up. All right, let's take a look at the moon. The moon is in Gemini, and we got this Moon-Jupiter conjunction. Hoorah! There's a lot of communicating going on. Luckily, I think there's the potential for a lot of listening too, because Mercury in Pisces is, when Mercury's in a water sign, it is receptive. But the challenge with Mercury retrograde in Pisces, you're always kind of reflecting it back to your own experience. So it's not completely neutral. You're not always the most objective listener, let's put it that way. Now, that's not to say that it can't happen. Again, we'll go into the direct motion of Mercury next week. But so there's a lot of chatter going on today. A lot of chatter. The sun is sextiling Jupiter, it's sextiling the moon, and it's noisy. It's a noisy day in a lot of ways. The thing with the moon in Gemini is people need to talk about their emotions. It's not bad. It's not a bad thing, but there's a lot of talking going on. A lot of talking. And at a certain point, who knows when you'll reach this kind of maximum, but at a certain point, you're going to want to turn the volume off because the voices in the room are going to get slightly cacophonous. This is also a very gossipy day. And I would say, watch out for gossip. You can listen. You can be the recipient of other people's gossip. But when I say watch out for gossip, gossip isn't always truth. However, sometimes tiny truths are revealed in gossip. So we have gossip at a macro level, right? And then we have gossip at a micro level. The gossip at a macro level are the rumors and innuendo that we pick up on in the media sphere. I'll give you an example. Ashley St. Clair, supposedly the mother of one of Elon Musk's many children, is now saying that, well, I'm so poor, I have to sell my Tesla. Well, according to Elon Musk, she gets X amount of money per year and an apartment. But now she's like getting angry. She wants to take him to court. Elon says, I'm happy to, deliver paternity tests. Like the whole thing is fucking weird. And this to me is Jupiter and Moon conjunction, because the Moon is maternal issues. And Jupiter is like, really? And when you think about this, I'm just going to give you an example. When you think about this, first of all, Elon Musk is embedded in the government. At least we're led to believe that. He's the head of Doge, whatever the fuck Doge is doing now. And this is a really important part of our government. Like Elon Musk is incredibly powerful. Whether you want to embrace it, wrap your head around it, he's powerful. And he is in the White House with Donald J. Trump. And yet he's going through a very public paternity spat with one of his baby mamas. And I was thinking about this. I'm like, how did we get here? I mean, seriously, how did we get here? Because if you were to wind the clock back, let's just go back 20 years. Now, 20 years ago, 2005, we have issues. We're, mired in this war in Iraq. We're in Afghanistan. We have Abu Ghraib. I mean, there's problems. We have George Bush as a president. We have these neocons who are, slicing and dicing and carving up the Middle East, and eventually will lead into Libya and Gaddafi. There's problems. But when you look at who was running the country, I'm not a George Bush fan. I can't stand the motherfucker. But there was some semblance of whatever kind of image was connected to the presidency and governance. I didn't like the people at all. Didn't mean I was a Democrat. I didn't like them at all. But when you look at them on the surface, like there were issues. George Bush liked bald men. And he probably liked bald men sleeping over at the White House. That's a different story. However, there's always been some degree of chatter, gossip, and innuendo connected to just about any president. Go back and look at the only one you don't get too much with, at least in recent memory, is Reagan. But all the rest have creepy scandals sort of floating around, right? That said, it was still like this model of a presidency and some kind of bureaucracy with a hierarchy. And if there was a scandal, it wasn't like some guy who was not an elected official, but was given a position in a part of the government that didn't even exist and is now in a flame war with his former OnlyFans baby mama. Like, how the fuck did we get here? And as a country, honestly, what does it do for us? Not much. In fact, it's, to me, if I was another country, like Europe's probably laughing. Europe's got issues, but they're probably laughing like this. I got this stupid motherfucker. He's in the White House. He's making a mockery of the system. He's making a mockery of the office, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? It's not a good look. Period. There's no self-respect at all, really. I mean, if we're having a very candid discussion here, what would be Elon Musk's kind of greatest achievement? Well, it would be to actually be married and have a kid and a family so that you could theoretically demonstrate that at a higher level for everybody else. Now, I get it. People are wired differently. I get it, right? And I have a pretty wide aperture for most people. But if we're talking about this idea of a top-down sort of Confucian model of influence with the so-called government, the people in the land, the people at the top need to be immaculate, right? They need to be able to demonstrate character, integrity. They need to be able to demonstrate something beyond character and integrity. They need to model something that the rest of society looks at and says, I respect that person. I respect what they're doing. Nobody respects Elon Musk. They don't. They might like him because of his money. There may be fanboys who wish they were him because he has all that money and he gets to be in an Iron Man movie and theoretically bed these women with IVF. But I don't think anybody really respects Elon Musk. Trump, that's a different discussion. I think Trump occupies this weird place between respect, fear, and loathing. That's a different discussion. But you're going to get a lot of gossip in the air today. And I think Elon's on the table. Elon baby mama's on the table. You know, there are a lot of things that over on 15 minutes I haven't really covered. Like, and maybe I'm going to do some of that today, but in fact I will. But like the RFK2 bribery scandal, which is being talked about. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? Right? That's gossipy. So there's that, the RFK2 bribery. There's also this weird thing with Mike Johnson on Grindr. Like, today is one of those days with this Moon-Jupiter conjunction. The world is a National Enquirer headline. And the weird thing about it is that there's going to be some truth to it. There will be some truth to it. But what people do with it, that's a whole other discussion. Right? It's a whole other discussion. So, bread and circus kind of being occupied. Well, at least you'll have some fun today. At least you'll get some snickers and laughs, and because Gemini is always good for being a little irreverent, right? A little irreverent. Now, how does it relate to you? Well, don't take yourself so seriously today. Yeah, there's a lot going on in terms of this Mercury retrograde and working through things, but we can multitask. You can do both things simultaneously. You can have one foot in this world and one foot in the other world. Isn't that how it's supposed to work? I think so. Not a lot of Earth in the sky. We just have Uranus right here, so the energy is not very grounded at all. Not very grounded. That'll change as we move into Taurus, and some of these planets eventually move into Earth signs. We'll get there eventually with Mercury and Venus, but the sun will get there first before those two planets do. So if we don't have a lot of grounded energy, you got to work with what's in the sky. A lot of fire, a lot of water. That's steamy. Very, very steamy. And then there's, an abundance of air, which is chattery. The monkey mind. It's funny. Today I was listening to the Rolling Stones' Monkey Man, which I haven't listened to in a long time. And this Moon-Jupiter conjunction is the monkey mind. keeps you occupied, keeps you spinning, does tricks. Maybe a little entertaining. You might actually be able to get something out of it. And at the end of the day, it's kind of bread and circus, right? Okay. Wow, we are just cruising right along today. We might even get out of here before. We might get out of here before 9 a.m. or 8:50, which is usually my exit point. So today, with the start of the day, I noticed something kind of interesting. There are themes with days, and so I'll give you my process for picking up the start of the day. I start the night before, and I look at whose birthday it's going to be. And if there's just a clear and direct hit, like, yes, I am going here. I am going to go here. This is so illustrative of like what's going on in this person's chart, and I can use it as a good teaching tool, right? There are some days where that's not easy. It's like, I got to really search and dig, but eventually I'll find something, right? But let me show you like part of the process. So yesterday, I'll show you the process. And what happens with certain days is there tends to be themes. Okay, so today is April 2nd, and there are all these birthdays to choose from. I got a text from somebody last night talking about Marvin Gaye, because today is Marvin Gaye's birthday. And I've done his chart before. So let's bring up Marvin Gaye. He's not our star of the day, just to let you know. So here's Marvin Gaye, Sun, Mercury, Saturn, right here, 10th house. What does he do? He sings for a living, 10th house. Weird connection with the father, Sun, Saturn. What does the father do? Kills him, right? Here's Mars squaring Saturn, Mars in Capricorn, Capricorn, the ruler of Saturn. We have what's called mutual reception here. Saturn is in Aries, Mars is in Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn, Mars rules Aries, mutual reception. We could call this a fait accompli. Like, it is going to happen. He's got Pluto right here on the ascendant. What's it doing? Squaring Saturn. Again, Saturn the father winds up killing him. Marvin Gaye, before he comes back to Los Angeles, goes into exile. Winds up, I think it's like Denmark or Holland or Sweden, one of those countries. And then he records the sexual healing record. Where did he come from? Where did he go? Here he is. He's got a hit, right? Very close to his mother. There's probably jealousy going on between him and his father. But the weird thing about Marvin Gaye is his sex life. He's got a really bizarre sex life. And he has Venus in the 8th house, so you're not really going to hear about it. But Marvin Gaye was strange with sex. He wound up marrying this girl who was like 15 or 16. And I think she was the younger sister of this woman that he was dating. And she used to bring her by the studio. Marvin Gaye seduces her, married, but he gets really weird with her. And Marvin Gaye has this kind of strange voyeuristic tendency. Usually you'll see this with Aquarius. And he does have Aquarius in the 7th house, even though there's no planets there. And he does have Aquarius in his 8th house, even though there's no planets there. And he did just strange shit. Like one time, he was like wildly jealous. And he set up this weird thing with her and Frankie Beverly. And Frankie Beverly was the singer of the group Maze. And he wanted her, pardon my language, he wanted her to fuck Frankie Beverly. And he set it up so they were in the same like hotel room together. And he knew, and it was weird. And he like barges in on him. It was like it was like this weird LARP. And Frankie Beverly and his wife were very uncomfortable. But eventually he pushes his wife into Frankie Beverly's arms. Marvin Gaye is like, he's got this weird thing with sex. Like it's not a normal jam for him, right? So this is in my brain. And he's got Pluto, of course, in the first house since retrograde. Anyway, I was going through these birthdays, and I stumbled upon Hans Christian Andersen. I'm like, let me check him out. So I did. And he's our star of the day. But what connects him with Marvin Gaye is like there's weird sexual stuff in Hans Christian Andersen's chart, which I will get into. So sometimes these days have very interesting themes in the day itself. So today's April 2nd, right? And the energy is connected to the number 2, which is relationship. Now, the number 2 is very Libran. When you think of 2, you think of the scales, one side and then the other, the scales. And Aries is not that. You know, on this day, Aries is trying to find itself in this sort of bicameral setting. Here's another kooky guy born today. I just saw him. What was it? Bill Romanowski. Bill Romanowski played for the San Francisco 49ers. And as an Aries, he led with his head. Literally, he led with his head. He's a linebacker. And probably has some version of CTE. He was a heavy-duty roid user. And I remember being backstage at a Rod Stewart concert. I thought, oh, man, I've made the big time. I'm backstage at a Rod Stewart. Rod Stewart wasn't even there. He was gone. Like some of his bandmates were there, but that was about it. But Bill Romanowski was there. And I was standing next to Bill Romanowski. I'm like, I'm fucking bigger than Bill Romanowski. Taller. No, he was thicker, wider. Well, not really that much wider. It's like, I'm bigger than this guy. And he's playing pro football. So, anyway, let's get into, there's a lot of really strange people born today. Linda Hunt, little Linda Hunt, she's born today. Everybody else that has some, I don't know about Bill Romanowski's sex life. Larry Coryell, who had a group called the 11th House. Diane Salento, why is that name familiar? I'm sorry, I'm getting a little down the rabbit hole. Oh, this is the woman who was married to Sean Connery. Right, interesting. I saw her. I saw this thing on Connery. That's why she was see something. All right, let's get to the start of the day because he is quite odd. Let me do this. Move back into the bigger space. Let's run it down here. All right, so our True Hemp Science star of the day is Hans Christian Andersen. Now, of course, this is brought to you by True Hemp Science. You're a one-stop shop for all things CBD. All you got to do, type in 15MINS when you order $100 or more, and you'll get the goodie bag, which is an order within an order. It's great. Awesome. Awesome deal. You're also supporting a Main Street business. And I don't know where we are with SB3 right now. I think we're still slightly in limbo, but it looks like it's going to pass. So you want to get your goodies while you can. $150 more gets you free shipping, and there's always a 30-day money back. All right, let's talk Hans Christian. This is the guy who wrote all the fairy tales. He was the fairy tale guy, but his life is really fucked up. Again, let's take a look at this chart. One of the things he became obsessed with more than anything was becoming a well-known and renowned writer. He became obsessed with it. That was his dedication. That was his work. He's got Sun Mercury in Aries, Mercury the third house, writing pretty prominent there. Trining Mars and Leo. A lot of his stuff is meant for children, right? A lot of his stories are meant for children. Hello, Leo. Calling Leo. And he's very imaginative, super imaginative. By degree, he's got a Mars-Neptune trine. There's Neptune in he's got Neptune and Scorpio in the 11th house, like yours truly. And he has a very unusual set of friends, which I'm going to get into. And he also has Jupiter in the 12th house. Well, that's interesting. And he's got Mercury. It's in the trine with Jupiter. He's got the Sun trine Jupiter, and then by sort of relationship, Mercury trine Jupiter. Okay. One of the things about Hans Christian Andersen is that his father dies when he's young. And he's raised by his grandfather. Okay? His grandfather is nuts. It winds up being committed to an asylum. So Saturn's the father here, but he is an unusual father. Well, theoretically, it falls to the grandfather. But it doesn't work out. Like his grandfather is insane. So it's him and his grandmother. His grandmother is equally insane, and she's like connected to a brothel. So now we're dealing with the moon in the 4th house, squaring Mars. Mars in the 8th house, which is, of course, the taboo. This is the mother. And then he's a very awkward looking guy. He's tall, so you're going to get Sagittarius. But then you're also going to get, he's very Capricornian in his appearance. He's not symmetrical at all. He's got these very large feet. He's got long arms. He's a very odd looking person. And it's very Capricornian. He has Chiron in the 1st house. He's very unusual looking. And he winds up working very young in, I believe, a coal mine, believe it or not. So he works in a mine at the age of 14, which is very Capricornian in the 1st house to take on responsibility. And he used to love to sing. And apparently he had this great voice. So he would sing if he was like a contralto or something. And the guys in the coal mine thought like he didn't have any nuts. So one day they pantsed him to see what was going on beneath his navel. And he was like 15 years old. And completely humiliating. So he winds up going to Italy. Hello, 9th house. And he finds this guy in Italy who becomes his surrogate father, Saturn Uranus. Like the whole thing with the father is unusual. And he travels to a different country in order to find him. So this guy who finds him is like, I think he's like a ballet choreographer or something. He's in the arts. And he kind of raises Hans Christian Andersen. So Andersen winds up becoming this very successful writer. And he has like all kinds of very unusual friends. Like he becomes friends with Dickens. And he spends 2 weeks with Dickens. And then they kick him out. They're like, no, you got to go. And not friends with Dickens anymore. One day he shows up at the home of Victor Hugo. And, Victor Hugo wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And he's like, who are you? And he just showed up there. Like, hello, I'm Hans Christian Andersen. I want to be your friend. He's also friends with the Brothers Grimm, right? They're writing sort of simultaneously. They're contemporaries. He's a very odd guy, and he's connected to all these people. Now, let's bring it back to sex. There's very strong evidence that Hans Christian Andersen died a virgin. And the one person, there were two people that he was in love with. One of them was Jenny Lind. Now, if you don't know who Jenny Lind was the Taylor Swift of her day. She was operatic. And she was this huge star. She traveled all around the world singing. And there was a week where he rented a hotel room in the same hotel that Jenny Lind was staying at. And he was famous. Like, this is a guy whose stories, Ugly Duckling, The Red Shoes, The Emperor Has No Clothes. Like, they were, he was really well known. But even his celebrity did not land him Jenny Lind's affection. And he tried to court her for a week in this hotel. And there's some letter or something where she says, to my dear friend, Hans Christian Andersen. It got so bad for this guy that he would hire prostitutes, but he wouldn't do anything. He would just sit there and talk with them. He was, I would say, on something like, on the one hand, like, there are actual diary entries where he says, I'm kind of okay with my situation. But then in the next sentence, he'll say, but my blood is boiling. And I'm trying to look at his chart. I'm like, well, where is this happening? Where is he not being fulfilled? It's Venus. So he has Venus in the third house in Pisces. Venus third house placements are not easy in a chart because the relationships with the opposite sex tend to be fraternal. Like, they tend to be, I'm sure many of you can relate to this. Like, if you're a woman, growing up, there was a guy who wasn't your boyfriend, but he felt like your big brother, right? But he wasn't your brother. But there was that kind of relationship. This is what I'm talking about. If you're a guy, and there was an older kind of girl, but it wasn't romantic, but you had a connection with her, but kind of like a bit. This is kind of the bane of Venus in the third house. It's not easy. And he has Gemini over here, right? In the seventh house. Again, we're dealing with some degree of mutual reception. Some. And then he has the South Node in Cancer. He's not really supposed to be in a relationship in his lifetime. He's supposed to self-actualize. But that self-actualization comes at a risk, at a price. Because Chiron is squaring his Sun, squaring Saturn, squaring Uranus. It's a very difficult path this guy has. Now, if I said to you, you could be considered one of the greatest writers of all time, and along with the Brothers Grimm, one of the greatest writers of childhood stories of all time, and your name would be immortalized, but you're not going to have any sex, would you take it? Would that be the trade-off? Because that's what happened with Hans Christian Andersen, right? We have all this intense fury, energy, passion around writing, but it's at the cost and the risk of self-expression and even relationship and love. And his relationships, again, are going to be more fraternal than they are romantic. So The reason I went to the Marvin Gaye piece is because Marvin Gaye had a very odd, bizarre sex life. And Hans Christian Andersen had no sex life, but that in and of itself is kind of odd and bizarre. To the point where he would go to brothels and he would just talk. He wouldn't do anything. He was a tragic romantic figure. But in other areas of his life, he's also incredibly successful. And he's like a version of sort of a, like in Paris in the teens. Like they had Paris in the teens. You had all these expats, like Hemingway and Pound and T.S. Eliot, and all these people, right? John Dos Passos, all these people hanging out together in Paris during that time. There was an earlier version of that, and he was part of that. So it wasn't like he was even unpopular during it. It wasn't like we had to wait 50 years to discover the works of Hans Christian Andersen. He was popular. That's how he got to hang out with all these people. His stories were very popular and they sold quite well. But he just couldn't seal the deal. He looks very Capricornian, doesn't he? There you go. There's your THS for the day, Hans Christian Andersen. All right, we took it right up to the top of the hour. Join me over on 15 Minutes of Flame. It is Liberation Day. Liberation Day, according to one Donald John Trump. We'll explore that and other facets of the Trump presidency as we are now 3 months into it. And it has been one wild ride, hasn't it? Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, tell your friends about the show if you like it. Hopefully they'll like it. I have toned down my cursing. That was a turnoff to some. Not that I did it on purpose. It's just a natural thing. What else? Treat each other well. Take care of yourselves. God bless. Love you all. Robin Phoenix signing off. Bye for now. Have a great day. Oh, we didn't have this. We didn't have. Damn it. Here's the chart. Why the fuck does this do this? I'm sick. I am sick. I'm fucking sick of StreamYard. There it is. There's the chart. I apologize. It's like everything else was working. Well, why not this? StreamYard, you're fired. You're fired. There's the chart. That's what I'm talking about. It's right there. You can see it in all of its very strange glory. Right there. Boom, 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 boom. Sorry about that. All right. Take care. Bye for now.